Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you on this bright, sunny Monday morning. Welcome, and welcome to our second session of Ninja Selling. We're going to be talking about something that everyone on this call is dealing with, and that's negotiate like a ninja with multiple offers. As I mentioned on our first call, we are so excited to be partnering with Ninja Selling and Terry Johnson to bring us this valuable information. Just remember that we do have a 15-minute Q&A afterwards, so you can, hold your questions. If you want to put something in chat, we'll make sure that's addressed. But Terry will be available afterwards for Q&A. Remember to, a little housekeeping to keep yourself muted. And this session, along with all the sessions, will be recorded. So without further ado, Terry, welcome again.
Thank you, Regina. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for being with us today. I'm not going to take much time. I did this last time. I'm Terry Johnson. I've been a realtor for 32 years and a ninja instructor and coach for the last 10 years. And so without further ado, let's jump into a topic that's pretty hot these days. And we have titled this topic, Negotiating Like a Ninja with Multiple Offers. I'm going to assume, after many conversations with Sandy and Regina, I have learned that you have amazing leadership. So I'm going to assume that there are a lot of very experienced agents on this call today. And I'm thrilled that there are, because I'd like to preface my time with you with a simple statement that I don't think I'm bringing you anything brand new, but I'm bringing you some ideas that I hope will jog our memory and remind us of what our A game looks like. Many parts of the country, mine included, agents tend to slip into not bringing their A game because listings are selling. Well, they are selling. However, there's many factors that come into that. And what we'd like to do is make sure that less of them fail and that we get our buyers agents accepted if we're representing buyers. So with that, let's start with something super basic, which is what are the 5 key negotiating points of a contract? And although we know these, I'd like to talk through them because I'd like to mention a couple of things as we go. Around the country, amazingly, and I don't know what yours is, but in California, in my market, the contract is up to about 28 or 30 pages. They range between 10 and 40 pages. And often what happens is this is just a bunch of legalese, but it's really hitting on 5 main negotiating points. And folks typically think that the most important negotiating point is the price. And of course, the price is important, but it's not the only negotiating point. In fact, there's 4 others that really do fall into pretty doggone important, sometimes more important than the price. Secondly is the terms. This one is very important. When you know what the sellers or the buyers, but it would be nice if we could get more buyers offers accepted. If you know when the sellers would really like to give up possession, there's a biggie, right? So what kind of terms, what kind of loan are they getting? Are they paying cash? Are they putting 20% down? Is it a VA loan? And so on, right? There's so many different things that terms can often be as important, if not more important than the price. Then there's the closing, the possession. When is that all going to happen? Is the seller going to have to move twice because they can't find a place to move? And so on. Inclusions and exclusions. We all know that if there is anything that's excluded, let's get it out of the house before we get it on the market. Everyone knows that. It's something that the sellers think nobody's going to want that. And of course, every buyer wants it because we didn't say that we were going to exclude it. And lastly, contingencies or options, whatever you call them in your market. What ninjas are very aware of all of these and how to use them. And I know this seems so simplistic, but stick with me if you would, please. I'm going to unpack all 5 of these negotiating points, both with a buyer and a seller. One of the top ninjas in the country, a really good friend of mine, Tammy Spalding, she says this, she says, you know, this market is so different. And if we could just amongst ourselves talk super transparently, and that is, this is a difficult market. For those of us that have been around a really long time, I'm not sure that this isn't one of the most difficult markets we've ever been in. Very, very low inventory and of course, lots of buyers and low interest rates. And Tammy Spalding, among others that I'll talk about, says that this is her key to success in a multiple offer market. And that is, I'm investing more time up front in the process. I often get this response from agents, and so I want to address it right here. And they say something like this, as if I don't have a clue what the market's doing. They say this, but here's the truth, Terry, you don't know my market. And that's the truth. I don't know your market, but I do know that the entire country is experiencing multiple offers, very low inventory, lots of buyers. And the agents say this to me: there isn't time to spend up front if we want to get the house. And I respectfully, completely, totally disagree with that statement. In fact, dare I say that there's never been a more important time to spend a really good amount of time with your buyers and your sellers, but we'll talk about sellers later, up front, because it gets them accustomed to what the market's doing. It helps them to understand the negotiating points and what needs to happen in this type of market. The last thing that she always closes with is, I've learned that I've got to slow down. Tammy is a very high D personality. And so she's let's go and let's get it done. But she said, I've had to learn to slow down so that we can go fast, right?
I don't want anybody to throw it away thinking it's from yesterday.
Robert, you need to mute yourself.
Of course.
Robert, you need to mute yourself, please. Anyway, so she's had to learn to go very slow to get the process started so that she can go fast when it gets to making an offer. The late, amazing Dr. Stephen Covey said this in his famous book in the late 80s called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said this, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. So what did he mean by that? Well, in our world, what that means is that we're going to start the negotiation discussion at the beginning of the buyer and seller process. Typically in our industry, what happens is most think that negotiations start when we write an offer. But what ninjas have found to be just super successful is when we start our negotiation talks in the beginning, when we train our buyers and train our sellers about negotiation up front, we'll have a better we have a way better chance of the offer being accepted and going through. So I'm going to start with the buyer process, like I said, and in Ninja, we feel that the buyer process is 3 acts. It's like a 3-act play. And it's very simple in how we break up these acts. The first act is the buyer consultation, okay? And this is where ninjas start the negotiation process. We have what's called a 10-step buyer process, and I'm not certain how familiar any of you are with that, so I thought I would offer Regina to send that process to her for any of you that want to get familiar with it before you read the book or listen to the book. But that's Act 1. That's the part, that is the most important part of working with buyers right now, is to have them either come into the office or do it virtually, which I have just absolutely, over a year, of course, mastered the Zoom 10-step buyer process in case people are more comfortable not getting together or getting together the least amount possible. So the Act 1 is the buyer consultation. Act 2, of course, is showing property, which we all know how to do. And Act 3 is when we come to what we call soft closing, when we see the signs that they're ready to make an offer, that they're talking like buyers that want to make an offer do, asking them, can you see yourself living in this house, and so on, right? Writing a contract, negotiating, and the closing. But keep in mind that with us as ninjas, we've talked about the negotiation at length before the process even got started. Another one of my really great friends in Colorado, very amazing ninja, Chris Doyle, when asked, what are you doing in a market like this that helps you to do well on your buyer process, he says it's the power of a great Act 1. It's the power of, if you will spend some time with me on the upfront, I will save you a ton of time on the back end. So in 2019, I tried reaching out to him yesterday to see what he did in 2020, but he's totally a ninja. The guy does not respond on Sundays at all. Not that we say don't, but he took the day off, I'm sure. But he said he served 44 buyers. Now, the first thing I love about how Chris talks is he used this word. I served 44 buyers. I didn't sell 44 homes. I didn't sell 44 people. I served 44 buyers. When I heard that he sold 44 buyers, if we were together in a room, I would say to you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And I think that for most of us, the first thing that comes to our mind is, are you kidding me? That is exhausting. So how many offers did you write, Chris? I mean, 44 closings with a buyer. How many offers did you write? And I wouldn't have been surprised in the least if he said, 100, 150. But here's the truth. 49 contracts, 44 accepted. By the way, can I give you a little tidbit right here? When we talk about agents and put their picture and their name, there's a reason. I hope that some of you jot them down and go, seriously, I got to call this guy. Like, he seems like a machine, right? But there's a reason, because they're ninjas. They love to share. So he wrote 44 contracts. But what was even more amazing to me was that he never, ever showed more than 4 houses. In fact, he said to most of them, it was 1 or 2. He prepared them for the market and for negotiation before he ever got into the market or negotiation. So he, again, like Tammy Spalding, invests a lot of time up front, right? He's very, very, very good at his buyer process, explains the market dynamics, ad nauseum. I mean, here's what's going on in our particular market. Here's what negotiation looks like in our particular market. And I love this quote. Before you jump into the ocean, let's make sure you know how to swim. This is an ocean, and I'm adding this, he didn't, but it's a shark-infested ocean right now. There are so many offers. So am I spending the right amount of time doing the right activities to get the best results? One other thing I think is important for you to know about Chris Doyle is he seems to attract a lot of high D power people, if you will. Okay, so what do you do with that power person? And I can so speak to this personality type because I happen to be it to a fault, this personality type. The power person, right? They just want to get it done, make it happen. Yeah, I'm not so much into your buyer consultation. Can we just get out there and look at property? I know I'm approved, I've got a full approval, and they just want to get out there and they want to do it. And Chris says that he responds like this: if you'll invest, 45 minutes to an hour in the upfront of the process, I will save you days on the back end of this process. And here's one thing about power people, CEOs, A personalities, and that is that they do understand return on investment. And Chris can show them that I really can save you a lot of time. More importantly, you'll have a better chance of getting the house you want if you'll spend the time with me up front. 45 minutes to an hour. Give me the opportunity to get to know how to best serve you so that we can go out into the market and save you the most amount of time and help you get the house that you want. So like I said, Act One is a powerful 10-step buyer process. One of the things that we have gleaned through Ninja, and I'll say probably in the last 40 years, is that buyers have fears. They don't come into the office and say, now here's what I'm afraid of, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? But they do have fears. And so our job is to help curb those fears. Number one, they're afraid of losing the property. I wonder if you can relate to this. So they're afraid they'll lose this property. They finally found a property, so they make an offer, but then they cancel the offer because another fear is missing something. And they see something that's a little bit better, so they cancel that offer. And in California, I don't know about your market, but in the California market, we've even have had several buyers forego their non-refundable deposit because they had a great agent who helped negotiate and get them under contract, right? And now they forego the non-refundable part of their deposit or their deposit and move on to a house that was better because they were afraid that they would miss something. They're also afraid of paying too much. Nobody wants to pay too much. And are we making sure in this market that that they know what that actually means? Because of course you and I know what this means, but they don't. If they see a house listed for $350, they must, they might think, well, too much would be anything over $350. It's our job to help educate them that people are paying over full price, right? So what is too much to them? And then lastly, something being wrong with it. Maybe, well, what if something's wrong with it? And of course, we know that, again, they've got an option period or a contingency period, but they don't always know that. And so that's the easiest of the four to combat. But the first three, what if we went into this and we knew, because we're ninjas, that they have these fears coming into the process, and we helped to remove those fears before we got into the process. So there's a psychological term in buying, and it's called giving them the green light. When we give them the green light, or when the gate of the mind is open, we'll buy. People love to buy, they just hate to be sold. And so if we can give them the green light, they'll buy. And again, especially two of the four personality types that we teach, the power and the party people, tend to be quicker decision makers when it comes to buying. But when the fears go away, they will have the green light, and they can come to commitment, if you will. So I want to really focus on 2 of the 10 steps in the buyer process where I feel we can start the negotiation up front. We can start the helping the buyer understand the market dynamics up front. And so one of them is step number 5. And I'm going to show you a demonstration of this step. But during step number 5, here is how it kind of starts in the beginning. Of course, our goal is to find you a great home, but I want to do that without you missing out on anything, of course. And I don't want you to have to pay too much. I have this process, and this is step 5. I have this process called the funnel process. I wonder, would you like to see how it works? Even a power person, when you preface step 5 with this verbiage, which of course is all in the buyer process in writing, even a power person says, well, of course, I have never, ever, and I've been a ninja all but my first 11 years of being in the business. I've never had somebody say to me, I'm not interested in your funnel process. I'm not interested in not missing out on anything or paying too much. Let's just go do it. They never say no, because here's what they love. According to NAR, every year, the profile of home buyers and sellers, which we can buy from NAR, they say they wish that we had a process. They feel like we don't have a process. They feel like they have to stay up half the night in their undies looking for houses on the internet. And the truth is they only feel that way because we don't show them that we have a process. We do, but it's just not a methodical process like a recipe. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this for you. And the reason I have this right handy is simply because we have been using the funnel process virtually, like I said, and it's been working beautifully. So like Larry said, you draw your funnel, and I know this seems rather elementary, but what I want you to understand is when you draw the funnel, it brings their attention back to you in case they were off, wandering or whatever. So you've seen already that he says we want to do a process of elimination, and we want to eliminate everything that won't work. And then this is where the rubber meets the road. So now I'm talking to you like you're the buyer. So tell me, are there any homes that you have found so far that you like? And they always have some, right? So you go, okay, so we're going to put all of those in the funnel, everything that you've found so far. Tell me, what was the first, what drew you to that house? And the first thing that they say, friends, the very first thing they say are typically their hot points, if you will. Ask that about every single property that they tell you that they found that they want to see. And then you ask this question: where did you find those properties? And typically they'll say, well, I found it on Zillow. Okay, good. Realtor.com. Okay, good. And then you tell them, so let me explain where Zillow and Realtor.com get their listings. See, their listings are auto-populated with our multiple listing service. And so all of the listings that you see out there online are filtered or populated, I should say, through the multiple listing service. So I would highly recommend that you use our multiple listing service simply so that everything that you want to see is something that's actually available. Have you ever called on a property that you saw on Zillow and found that it was not available, that it sold 2 or 3 months ago, right? And of course they go, yeah, that's happened. That is such a bummer, right? And so you go, well, ours is more up to date. In fact, it's updated often every minute or so. Have you considered new homes, new construction? I'd like to put any new construction in the funnel as well. And we put that in the funnel. Explain a little bit about new construction. How about for sale by owners? Have you considered any for sale by owners? Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. I don't want to mention for sale by owner. What if they go find a for sale by owner? If you'll talk about it up front, what will happen is they will realize that you can help them with a for sale by owner, and tell them the truth, of course, but tell them, I've never found a for sale by owner that wouldn't work with me. But if they won't, you certainly can work with them and do the sale yourself. They don't want to work without representation. So be sure to mention the for sale by owners. Then there's also what we call bank-owned properties, or REOs. There's not that many of those in this market, but we're going to put those in the funnel. And if we come across one of those, of course, we'll take a look at those as well. What's going to happen is as they're looking at everything, tell them that what I'd like you to start is, we have what's called like a cart, like when you buy something online. Start putting all the houses that you like in the cart. And what will happen is I'll get a really good idea of what it is that you love and what it is that you're looking for. And pretty soon we will eliminate all the properties that won't work, and the ones that will work will come out of the bottom. See, friends, here's what typically happens is a buyer calls, and what we say is, tell me what you're looking for. And I say we as our industry, okay? So tell me what you're looking for. And they tell us they're looking for a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 3-car garage on a cul-de-sac with a pool, right? And what we say is great, and we start searching by the selection criteria that they mentioned to us. Well, that's called a process of selection, whereas the process of elimination works so much. There's not so much to look at. We eliminate everything that won't work for them. But can I remind you what we just did here? What we just did is we began to eliminate their fears. We began to eliminate all the things that they didn't tell us they were afraid of, but that they are afraid of. The things that they were worried that wouldn't, that we would try to sell them when in fact we weren't selling them, we were going through a process. But let's talk about the key points of this. So it's a process of elimination versus selection. That alone, friends, will make you so different than most agents, because most agents just jump on the MLS and put in what the buyer says they want. But then it begins to eliminate their fears. And of course, the first one is they don't want to miss anything. They don't want to pay too much. And the key to this is you draw it. Be visual. And one of the reasons you want to be visual is that 60% of the population gathers visually. They gather by seeing before everything else. So the whole point of this is we're beginning in the counseling, the buyer counseling appointment to counsel the buyers on the market dynamics before they're in the market. And it helps them to understand what the market looks like. See, so many buyers come into the market and they think, oh, this is going to be so much fun. Let's buy a new house. And the truth is, this is a daunting market right now. So you want to mention to them about the dynamics. Of course, here's just an example right now in your price range. And you want to give them these examples, right? 50% of the homes are under contract. More importantly, 84% of those homes sold for full price or more. See, remember, one of their fears is paying too much, and there's not that much on the market. So a lot of buyers are paying more than it's listed for, and there's less than a 1 month supply on the market. Tell them, show them is even better what the market dynamics are before we get out there and before they see that the competition is so stiff right now, right? So we're counseling them on the market dynamics. We're also counseling them on negotiation before we get out in the market. This is kind of funny to me, but us ninjas, we've been calling this market for years now the mosh pit. It's dangerous. It's you could get hurt. People don't like to be in it. But when we begin to talk our clients through the negotiating points before they actually get out in negotiations, they can begin to understand what those points look like. Let's just talk again for a moment about terms. Price, of course, is price, and they're going to offer what they offer, and whether they think it's too much or not. Sometimes they have to lose a couple of properties before they realize they have to offer more than a property's listed for. But let's talk about terms. Let's say that they're an 80%, 80% down conventional buyer, or how about an FHA buyer? Somebody that's only putting 3.5% down, right? How can you make your terms better if you're putting less down? Well, maybe they could make part of their earnest money non-refundable, or all of their earnest money non-refundable. That's really up to them. What kind of contingencies or options could we remove from the contract completely so that it's a better offer than one who has the loan contingency? Or so on. How about possession? Possession is huge. Sellers are afraid, if I move, I'm not going to have anywhere to move. So all of these negotiating points, if you will, become so much deeper when you talk about them up front. What about this? And I know what you're thinking. Number one, I am you. And number two, we don't love to pick up the phone. But what if, as ninjas, we would pick up the phone and call the listing agent. Call the listing agent and tell me, I'm just curious, what would your seller's dream offer be? You know, well, full price. Yeah, of course, full price, right? But what about, and we begin to walk through the terms and the dates and the closing and the possession and so on, right? The inclusions, the exclusions, the contingencies. Are there any of those that we could remove before we brought it to the seller so that it was close to perfect? I can't guarantee you I'll bring a perfect offer, but I would love to bring as close to a perfect offer as I possibly could. How about delivering the contract in person? I know what you're thinking, but when we meet face to face with the other agent, not necessarily actually giving them the contract, we're still going to deliver it electronically. But what if we got together with the other agent and just face to face talked a little bit about our buyer and seller? Back in the day, that's all we ever did was get together face to face. And it gives you an advantage because they get to see your eyes, they get to watch your body language, your inflection, how certain you are that your buyer can actually close, and so on. We've included in your package, one of the ninjas in the country, she has this this form she calls Offer Strategies to Win, and she walks through this entire, all of these categories, if you will, with her buyers up front. And she brings this out and she walks through these up front so that she can get an idea of their comfort level in all of these areas and what are they willing to do and what are they willing not to do, depending on how qualified they are, what kind of down payment they have, and so on, right? It helps us to begin to coach our buyers into a winning contract. There's only one reason that Chris Doyle has such a high acceptance rate. He's ready when he comes to the table. He's got his loan fully approved. Everything's ready. He's talked through negotiations. He's talked through market dynamics. He knows that his buyers are ready. We need to be fast. We need to be able to respond within 24 hours. Keep your phone on. If you're going to be gone, let me know that you're going to be gone, because we need to be fast depending on how quickly they want to find their next house. We probably are going to have to be full price or better. If we can, we want to reduce or eliminate contingencies if we can. We really want to have a couple of other options if we can. Now, obviously, we had a little faux pas with the funnel process, but when you watch it again, which I will send it just in as the video itself, we like to have at least 2 or 3 options. I always cringe at this simply because I am you, and sometimes there's not 2 or 3 options. But if there are, is this one of your favorites? Could this be part of your rolling top 3? Always have a second option if possible, so that they're not heartbroken when they lose their first one. And we want to explain the appraisal process. This is huge. Up front, again, when you explain the appraisal process up front, it's so much more powerful than when we do it when our deal crashes because of an appraisal. Let's talk about that for just a moment and explaining the appraisal process. Appraisers, I can't think of a worse job in our industry, with all due respect to appraisers, right? But appraisers have to look back in order to come up with their appraisal price. The guidelines are that they look back at least 2 or 3 months, sometimes 6 months. So they're looking in the rear view mirror, and buyers are looking through the windshield, because right now pricing is still, we're still appreciating. So we're looking through the windshield. So tell them that it might not appraise, and start to talk about, if it doesn't appraise, what we can do, because the appraisal looks backwards and we of course are looking forward. So what if we could put a modification of appraisal clause, or whatever you call that in your market, in our offer? What would that look like? So let's just say that we have a contract for a $300,000 house and the buyer's putting 20% down. So the buyer is doing a $240,000 loan, 60% down. But the last sale of a house just like this one was for $290,000. And it was only 2 months ago, right? House is very, very similar. Let's talk about what might happen. So the buyer agrees that if the house appraises at $290,000 or more, in writing, they agree that they'll buy the house, okay, with their $300,000 offer. And then we explained that here's what we've got to prove to the seller. So it appraises for $290,000. My loan amount now is going to go up to $232,000, down to $232,000. So now I'm going to have to come in with $68,000 instead of $60,000. But let's prove to them that we have that money, because if we don't prove the funds up front, they may think we're just trying to weasel our way into first place, if you will. Another discussion that you want to have up front with your buyers is, what if we find that cream puff listing, if you will, or turnkey listing, if you will. This is a house where it's exactly what you want as the buyer. It's the bedrooms, it's the baths, all the appointments, but it's also what everybody else wants. So we want to be sure that we are quick to respond to it. And remember that it won't last long, because if you love it, if it's a cream puff, so will every other buyer that's out there looking for a property right now. Now, here's a few opportunities that we might watch for that we kind of forget about because we get in the thick of the speed of the market. And just a few items, but what about the agent? You know that agent, right? That either has very poor MLS information or it's even wrong. You know that it's actually a 4-bedroom, but they've got it listed as a 3 because that's what it says on the tax information. Or how about this one? The property hits the market on a holiday, right? Be ready, because if it hits the market on the 4th of July, I'll be ready if you'll be ready. Make sure that they know that. How about weather? You live in a part of the country where weather could be a factor. Chris Doyle, again, because he's in Fort Collins, Colorado, this perfect house, if you will, hit the market. And he called his clients. It was in the midst of a blizzard. And he said, I have a 4-wheel drive. If we went over and we saw this property, we could likely be the only people that go and see it in this weather. And of course, they got it because he was willing to get them there. How about expired listings or listings that come back on the market? Look for those as well. There's so many things that we can do to look in a different place for listings than just wide open on the multiple listing service. What are some of the things we could do, though, that would help prevent buyer's remorse? There was a study done by Zillow, and they listed 8 things that that you ought to watch for when in this market when it comes to buyer's remorse. Here's a question. I seriously never thought about this at all. But the buyers get caught up in the emotion of, there's a new house on the market. We've got to see it. We've got to write on it. Ask them this question. Is this a house you want to own, or do you just want to win? Are you getting caught up in that winning the bid, if you will, right? If they do love the house, let's do our best to make sure they go through it more than once, right? So not just the time where they had 5 minutes and there were all these people lined up outside to see it in their 5-minute or 10-minute time frame, but schedule to get through it a second time, maybe later that afternoon or evening. Walk through every single room of the house. See, we think we're going to remember it, but we get out of the house and they did that room have how big was the closet in that room, and so on, right? So walk through every single room of the house. And if you can, walk through it privately, not with other people kind of waiting for you to be done. If there's a floor plan of the house, have that available. It's great to look at to remind yourself of what the property looked at. And here's a little tidbit. As an agent, as a listing agent, here's a really great way to serve our industry and of course buyers, and that is have a floor plan done for every one of your listings. Remember, we're going to bring our A game. Number 5, brochures. If there's a brochure with photos, have that and keep that with them after viewing. If not, make sure you find all the photos you can and get them to the buyer to remember what the house actually looked like. I already mentioned number 6, and that was see if we can tour the house again privately, maybe that evening. Read through all the disclosures. All the disclosures. If they're not attached to the listing, then certainly call the listing agent and ask, can I get a copy of the disclosures? And we'd like to read through everything that there is. Do you have any pre-inspections that we might be able to look through to see if maybe we're willing to remove our inspection contingency? And then at the end, make sure that you talk them through. Does this fit your original goals? You told me that you wanted X. Does this really fit those goals? Remember that the buyer's fears, 2 of them are losing a property and not missing anything. The US cancellation rate right now, which has a direct correlation with not missing anything and losing a property, is 23%. So almost 1 out of every 4 is canceling. All this says is don't be afraid to be the backup contract. Don't be afraid to be that backup position. Counsel not only the buyers, but the sellers on negotiation before they get in negotiation. All right, let's kind of shift to the sellers now. So we're going to do the same thing, only different, because now we're taking listings, right? But we're going to counsel them, not only on the market dynamics, but on all of the things we just talked about with a buyer, we want the seller to be aware of. And our mission for the seller is to put them in the strongest negotiation position possible. So are we bringing our A game? I train a lot of agents, and I've got to be honest, one of my biggest peeves with us right now is that we're not bringing our A game because we don't have to. Friends, we're going to be in this business a lot longer than this market is going to be going the way it's going. So are we staging? Are we doing professional photography? Matterport photography, video, floor plans? Are we providing pre-inspections? I'm not going to go deep into this because this is not a listing class, but most of us ninjas pay for a pre-inspection up front and put it on the counter display so that all buyers that come through can see every inspection that we had done, roof, pest, radon, whatever is pertinent in your market, right? And it's there for everybody to see. Here's a great conversation to have with your sellers. Would your roof pass an inspection? Do you think we could get a 2-year roof certification right now? Well, I don't know. You know, how about your furnace? How about your AC? They don't know. And the number one value to a seller is to know these things up front so that if we did have to take care of any of those, that we could do it before we put it on the market, put the inspection there, and then also put the receipt for of all the work that we had done as well. So have that all on a counter display. And then listing launch for maximum exposure. A listing launch for maximum exposure. This is very powerful. What is a listing launch? Even in a different market, I was going to say in a normal market, but how do we know what normal is, right? What does a listing launch look like? It's so different than your average realtor, okay? So a listing launch, And by the way, it does comply with the NAR standards, but make sure that it complies with your local standards and your coming soon guidelines and so on. But you get your listing signed, okay? So that's the first step. They've decided that they want to list with you. And you prepare the property and the marketing before you ever get it on the market. Don't let somebody convince you, don't let a power person strong arm you that we have to have it on the market by Friday or whatever day they say, right? We want to show them that we have a process called a listing launch. So for example, this is how I would do it. You can do it any way you want. You set it up the way you want. But I'd like to get your house completely prepared, the marketing all completely prepared, and I'd like to launch the listing on Wednesday. And then on Friday, I would like to do a curious neighbor open house, if you will, a private open house for just the neighborhood. Then on Sunday, I would like to have a public open house, and then we'll review offers on Monday. And we put all of this in the MLS so the agents all know. And what happens is that it gives everybody just a little, it's only Wednesday to Monday, but it gives everybody a little more time to breathe and not make hasty decisions because they're afraid that they might miss out on the property. So we get it on the market, we have showings, we have a tour, we have the open house, and then on Monday, we present the contracts, several of them typically, and begin the contract negotiation. What are the benefits to this listing launch, if you will? Well, there's actually several, and I've already mentioned a couple of them, but it gives the buyer a little bit more time to not make that hasty decision that they might end up regretting and getting buyer's remorse. It gives the seller a little bit more time. The seller doesn't have to act quite so quickly because they have a little bit more time to get the house prepared. We do our marketing. Everybody gets to make a little bit better decision. In fact, we call it a balanced brain decision, where it's not a hasty decision. And there's far less buyer remorse or buyer's remorse. And of course, that creates fewer cancellations. See, as a listing agent, what we want to do is we always want to be thinking ahead of the game, because we've got a monumental task when all these offers start coming in. So we're thinking at least a couple of moves ahead when we have multiple offers. We've already talked about all the negotiation points. We could even say to the multiple offers that we decided to respond to, are any of you willing to reduce your inspection clause or take your inspection clause out? Who's willing to remove the appraisal clause? Who's got enough money to pay the difference if it doesn't appraise? And bring all this back with you when you sign your counteroffer so that we can make a balanced brain decision. See, sellers, here's what they don't get in this market. Right now, it is a seller's market. We've explained that to buyers. We've explained that to sellers. But here's something I wonder if we're all explaining to our sellers. Sellers don't get a second chance. See, the negotiating dynamics change so quickly. See, at first impression, it's a seller's market, right? But as soon as we have a ratified contract, now the buyers are in the driver's seat. See, we have what's called negotiation dynamic. And when the need is high, what happens is the power is low. So at the beginning, we, as the seller's agent and the seller, they've got a lot of power. Need high, power low. That's when the buyer accepts the contract. Now the seller's power is lower than it was before, right? Whereas when need is low, power is high. That was before we had a contract. One of my favorite ways to speak to this entire process with a seller is in baseball terms, if you will. And don't use it if you don't love baseball. I just happen to love baseball, so I really speak this language. But we want to negotiate to home plate, not just to first base. You can get an offer on the house. That's not the hard part in this market. You can get an offer on the house. But then we have to negotiate the inspections. We have to negotiate the appraisal. We have to negotiate. I mean, we've got all these other negotiation items that haven't been addressed yet. And so it's not as simple as getting to first base. It's really about scoring, which means getting all the way around the bases. We provided a multiple offer worksheet, but I'm kind of guessing that your company probably has one. But the best way to present these multiple offers, of course, is not to spread out 5 or 10 or 15 offers, but consolidate all the information in one place so as to create clarity for our sellers. One of the most effective negotiation techniques, not only with our sellers, but with the other agents, is to go live. In Ninja, we talk go live all the time. And that is talk to face with the other agents, with your sellers, and so on. So often an agent will say to me, you know, we just can't seem to come to terms on this. And I'm going to ask this question right up front. So have you sat down and talked about it? Well, no. Well, how are you communicating? Well, we've been texting or we've been emailing. Don't be that agent. Don't be that agent. In Ninja, we call that the faceless other. There's no emotion connected to that offer and to that agent. Go live. Get on the phone with, get face to face with, do whatever you have to do to get with the other agent to give your buyer or seller the best possible chance at winning in the negotiation. I want to close with a real life example. This house is in Old Town in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's in a very, very desirable part of Fort Collins, Colorado. And this just kind of speaks to our industry. And I want to show the difference between our industry and Ninjas. So the property got 15 offers on it. 5 of them had a loan, okay? So that meant that 10 of them didn't. Of the 5 that had a loan, how many do you think had their pre-approval, like they're completely pre-approved? 2 of them. This is the state of our industry, friends. 2 of them had approval letters. 10 of them were cash offers. How many do you think presented their offer with verification of funds? 1. Agents are not bringing their A game. They don't bring their A game ever, but they're really not bringing their A game right now. Here's the lesson in this example on Park Street. There is no competition except for us. How willing are we to bring our A game to the table and negotiate like a ninja? Bring your A game no matter what's going on in the market. You're going to be in the business way longer than these buyers and sellers we're working with today. Like I said when we closed last time, TSW, this stuff works. If you'll work the system will work. Thank you guys so much for putting up with our technical difficulty today. Of course, you'll get a recording of this, but I'm also going to include the buyer process as well as Larry Kindle's standalone video of the funnel process, because that is really the most technical part of the process. With that, Regina, I'd like to stay on the call and answer any questions. Take 50 lashes with a wet noodle if I need to.
Sure thing. We'll open it up to, okay, what is the last line? There is no blank for a ninja. The last line on the handout, I guess.
No competition for a ninja. If we'll just bring our A game. I mean, it's so easy to be better than everybody else because everybody else is running scared, if you will.
Well, and I have statistics I can share with you all to back that up, and we can send these out to you. And this is the one where the productivity percentage, do you know that one? Do you want to review it? It's 11.23% in the market and Ninjas are 38.85%. You know what? We can't hear you though.
Are you talking to me or to your agent?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you.
I would love to see it, but I would like your agents to see it because what I
Okay, then we'll send it out and then we'll review it. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
As people are hopping off the call. Okay, we have, looks like in chat, it's basically, excellent remarks again, bringing our A game. I don't see any questions other than that one. So I have one. How about there are consumers who prefer text communication. So how do we work that dynamic out? Because, we would always say, whatever their preference is what might get you the best results. So
Regina, let's just pretend you're my client and you tell me text is your preference. And I go, wonderful. That's great for me, great for you, no problem. But Regina, I have one question for you. When it comes down to negotiation and really getting in the thick of things, can we at the very least talk on the phone to get through the 5 negotiating points? Will that be okay with you?
Sure. Who could say no to that?
Exactly, right? And so we absolutely want to treat them the way they want to be treated. Their preference is text, no problem. But when we get down to it, we want to make sure that we don't miss anything. And I want to be able to talk to you, see you, whatever the case may be. So just ask. Nobody's going to say no. They just won't.
Especially during that important process, the negotiation process, most critical. Gail asks, how can I make FHA more appealing in an offer?
How can I make FHA? Is that what she said?
Yes.
Yes. Well, so part of this is going to come down to to the listing agent, Gail, unfortunately, because in FHA, they up the game with regard to what they require as far as the inspections. So my hope would be that that there would be pre-inspections, but let's pretend there weren't. And let's pretend that the agents that listed the house is giving us until Monday at noon to have our offers in. See if we can go back through the property on that evening with our inspector. I know that the last market like this where I was selling, it wasn't like this one, but very hot market. I had my inspector on call and promised him I paid the inspection because I pay it in my listings. So I'll pay the inspection if you'll walk through. He would of course cut me a deal because of the number of closings I had every year. And he would walk through that with me and give a verbal to the buyers. And it would give me an idea if I felt comfortable, or they felt comfortable, I should say, not me, removing their inspection contingency. So inspection contingency is one thing. I have a question for you on this, Regina, because I don't know your market. Are you guys allowed to write buyer letters?
Yes.
Okay, so there's another buyer letter, or let's take it a step further, a buyer video explaining to the seller why they love their house so much. When you can plea to someone's human side, to their emotions, we have so much more power. And these poor FHA and VA buyers, they don't stand a chance. I mean, so just, sorry, Gail, that's the best I can do, but anything you can eliminate up front, but then if you're allowed to do the buyer thing, boy, that's powerful.
I have here, what if a buyer will absolutely refuse to eliminate the inspection contingency? I think that's the pre-inspection, right? That would be the answer.
Well, the answer would be that, here's the bummer, guys. There's always a bummer, right? We might have to lose 2 or 3 houses before they realize that you were right and that we should get the pre-inspection. You did say the buyer, correct?
I did say what?
The buyer, you were talking about the buyer.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, that was a question in the thread.
Okay.
Let's see if there's anything else. I read an article about buyers writing things into the agreement of sale to sellers if their offer is accepted. For example, tickets to box seats for a sporting game. Is this legal? That might be a broker of record question.
Right. Be careful.
Is it a bribe?
Be careful.
Depends if you
I,
are on the receiving end or the giving end.
yeah,
It's probably not the greatest idea. Is it
right.
illegal? Doubtful, but still not that great. Find something
right.
else to negotiate on.
Right.
That's our Pennsylvania broker of record right there.
Okay.
And
good.
yes, it looks like, yeah, Marilyn unable to write love letters. Two last points on the listing launch stages.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Let me go back to that. Give me a second.
and just as a reminder, we will be filling this out and, having all the exact ones in the handout, which included that slide that was blurry about price and financing. So
And the two last points on the listing launch, was it on the benefits?
I gotta scroll up through here. Can you unmute whoever asked that question?
Whoever asked it asked the stages, and I accidentally answered the benefits, but they wanted to know the last two of the
Okay.
stages.
Here they are. Okay. Contract presentation and contract negotiation.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Can you give me the last phase in letter G for the funnel process, the key points?
Yeah, let's go back. I don't have your handout in front of me. Let me go back to the funnel and see if it's on the slide. And if it's not.
While she's doing that, I will read off some helpful hints from others on the call. For FHA VA buyers from Trina, don't forget the third-party request for repairs form. It won't solve all the FHA buyer hurdles, but may help.
Yes.
So it's the one right after that, or the funnel process.
Okay, so that was actually in video format. And so I don't have your handout right in front of me, so I can't see what it, can you tell me what it says there?
You had like the 4 keys up there.
Oh, yes, okay, this.
Yes, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
Regina, can I give just 3 points to always check with your broker, manager, or trainer on a couple topics that were discussed?
Absolutely.
Always check with your broker, manager, or trainer. There's any type of pre-marketing for the MLS, such as that neighborhood open house. Check with your broker, manager, or trainer on the non-refundable aspect of the deposit checks. And also, a lot of associations are moving towards the mindset of against the buyer letters because it could pose some fair housing issues.
Yes.
Yeah, Jim is on the board of Bright MLS, so he's got some great information.
We're not allowed to write the letters or do a video. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people are going towards that because it just creates a lot of unfair advantage.
Yeah, and in Maryland, that is not allowed. Our attorneys have said that we need to be, not read them, not draft them, not present them. It could border on fair housing issues, and we are asking that they not be presented.
Okay. Sure.
And that's Joanne Poole, our manager in our Harbor East office, who is a NAR director. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Regina.
Okay, I think that's about the last of the things that I've seen on here. So managers and trainers, please stay on, or no, stay on. We're going to remember to get off of this call and get on to the call that was sent to you by Sandy. Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Take care.